You were not meant to be a slave to the grind. You were not meant to trade your life force for money. You can escape gravity. You can unlock your life. You got this. Let's go.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to Unlock Your Life. I'm your host, Jennings Smith, and I'm super pumped that you're here today. Guys, we're going to be talking about the challenges of owning a business and if your business owns you, or do you own your business? Is your business serving you, or are you serving your business? When you think about it, there are two types of business owners, entrepreneurs. There's the type that has a business, it's growing, it's scaling, it kind of can be grown to different levels, and the work that the owner is putting in has the ripple effect, right? He has teams that institute his vision or her vision. They can acquire businesses, they can grow, they can scale, and it generates income whether he or she is actively working in it or not. Then you have the other type of small business or business, and that's essentially where you own your own job. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? I think that that's okay, and I think that a lot of people are going to be satisfied and happy with that. And in some regards, it may be better than working for somebody else. In some regards, it may not be. But owning your own job is you are an integral part of this business. And without you, the business would absolutely collapse, would absolutely just stop very, very quickly. For me, I had a business running construction and renovations and building custom homes. And I was the lead sales guy. And I was also kind of the vision caster. I was running the meetings. I was doing a lot of the financial stuff, pretty much everything other than I was not the project manager. So I wasn't the project manager and I wasn't swinging the hammer, wasn't building the homes. But to say that I had a business was really not true. I had a well-paying job, but if I did not show up to work every day, it wasn't going to work. I mean, I could take a week or two off here or there, but if I left for any significant period of time, it was not going to work. So when I was approached by a franchise opportunity, these guys had systems and processes in place for construction companies. It made a lot of sense for me to be a part of that. Now, I had to lay my ego aside and I had to go under their brand and change a lot of things, but they gave me a CFO, they gave me an accounting team, they gave me software, they gave me systems, they gave me processes, and it was a lot easier for this business to run without me being just the head person. Now, I still was handling the sales and driving the revenue of the business, and that's definitely a harder piece to let go of, especially for small business owners, but it was much, much better. I was in a much better scenario. And what I ended up doing was I started to train one of my employees to take over that company, right? I started taking him on sales calls, showing him the ropes, and he got the hang of it. And eventually he was leading the sales and he was leading the team meetings and he was leading the project managers and he was on the accounting calls and he took it over. However, he would not have had the confidence to take that over without a framework, right? We had a strategic plan, how to grow the business. We had a sales process. We had an accounting process. We had a project manager training system. We had a system on how to run these jobs. I didn't have this. The franchise that I joined had this, but I had enough vision to look forward and see, wow, my business is not a business at all. It's just a job. I do everything the way I want to do it, and I change with the winds, and I'm really not structured. And if I join this company, this is going to make my company much more valuable. So did it cost money to join this franchise? Of course it did. And I had to pay royalty fees, but I was able to sell my company for far more than what I would have sold it for without them, because I would have sold it for probably nothing without Alair Homes, which is the franchise that I was involved with. And the company's still around today. It's still thriving. Alair Homes is still around and thriving. And it just shows the power of having an organized business process system and having successors. So why am I talking about this? Well, I'm reading a book the $100 million exit right now, recommended to me by one of my mentors. And they're highlighting a lot of these things that I learned and saw through this franchise that I was involved in. And I'm also looking at businesses online that are for sale. I'm looking at businesses to buy. I'm always looking for new opportunities. And one of the things that I'm looking for is a system and a process and a team that's already set up. And when businesses get to a certain size, making $1 million or more in EBITDA would be basically your profits after you pay all your employees and expenses and et cetera. But once they're above a certain size, it just is a lot easier for those businesses to have those sorts of teammates and be able to afford to have those employees and parts and pieces. And so as I'm looking at this and I'm looking online, there's a business that I see, and it is a specialty manufacturing equipment type business out of New York. I'm thinking, oh, that's interesting. They're doing $3 million a year. Their profits are $800,000 or $900,000. They're only asking $3 million for the business. Maybe this could be a good opportunity. And I called the business broker and I talked with him, and he says, that's a job. Essentially, you're just going to be buying a job. It's a well-paying job. You can make $800,000 a year, but that is not something for a remote owner. And the problem with taking something like that on, if I did, then, which I wouldn't, to be clear, but if I did, that would take my time and attention and focus, and there really wouldn't be anything else that I could do. Now, could I find a successor? Could I replace myself? Yes, but I'd have to learn that business, and that would take me at least 6 months to a year, and I'm not willing to give up 6 months to a year of my life for $800,000. Just not willing to do that, because one, I can leverage my time into more than that, and two, my kids are growing up, my wife, my relationship, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to move to New York and learn how to run this business. It's just out of the question. So that was dismissed. However, there's another company that I was looking at, which is more on the insurance side, and the guys that want to sell it, they may want to stay on as employees. They've got key team members. They've got an accounting team. They've got 14 locations. So they're diversified. It's not just one key supplier or customer that is providing all the income for that company. And this is a much more attractive business. And so I look at the synergies that I have with real estate and business and transactions, and this type of insurance kind of fits in with what I do and the connections I have and the relationships that I have. And so that business is a lot more attractive because it is not a job, right? This is something that I could partner with the guys who are selling it. We could take it out or take it down. We could pay them a large sum of money, and they would be willing to stay on, maybe even as a percentage of equity partners. Maybe they could train their successors, and we could build this. And this is something that I can bring my value. We can scale the revenue, and then we can exit in 3 to 5 years. Because the other cool thing about these businesses, if you grow the revenue or the EBITDA above a certain point, you attract a different pool of buyers, and those multiples become much different. So if you think about multifamily real estate, the multiple on the net operating income is, around 10 to 20. So a 10 times multiple would be a 10 cap, called a 10 cap deal. And that is a great deal. In multifamily, that's pretty much impossible to find at this point. But a 10 cap is great. And the lower that number goes, like a 5 cap would be 20 times the multiple of the NOI. A 5 cap would be more of an expensive apartment, probably more the going rate, 5 to 6 cap. And so you're paying 10 to 15 to 20 times the multiple of the NOI. Versus in a business, a lot of times you're only paying 3 to 5 to 8 times. A business like Apple, I think, can command 18 to 20x multiple. So it is pretty unique that apartment complexes command such a high multiple of the NOI. But think about it. They're perfect for absentee owners. They run themselves for the most part. You can hire a property manager and they're going to handle the taxes, the insurance, the rent collections, the evictions, the maintenance, everything, right? All you have to do is provide the capital, check in with them every once in a while, and collect your check. Like once you get that deal closed, especially if it's a stabilized apartment complex, like it is very, very easy to run as a passive investor. It's also very easy to sell. There's a lot of demand for that type of business, and an apartment complex is a business, right? So there's a lot of demand. They're easy to trade, and that's why they trade at such high multiples. So the smaller the business is, let's say you have a business that's only generating $100,000-$300,000 a year in net profits. Well, that really isn't a business at all, because the owner needs to take that as a salary for that business to work. And if they're working in the business all the time, then they really just, going back to the earlier example, they just have a job. So you get to $1 million in EBITDA, then most buyers are willing to pay 2-3 times, maybe a little bit more than 3 times multiples. So if they're making $1 million a year, that company may be worth $3 million, maybe a little bit more, because it's just got a lot of more revenue to handle, adding teammates, scaling, et cetera, et cetera. And when you get to $5 million in EBITDA, so think about this, $5 million in EBITDA is, you're probably having to do $20 million a year, $25 million a year in gross revenue. But now instead of commanding a 3 times multiple, you may be able to get a 5 times multiple, right? So now, not only is it making more money, you're also getting 66% more per million of net operating income than you were prior. Okay, so for math, let's say you had a $1 million company, it's worth $3 million if you had $1 million in EBITDA, versus $5 million at a 6x multiple, that's worth $30 million. So even though it's only 5 times as big of a company, it's worth 10 times as much on the valuation, right? Because it's attracting a different buying pool. It's attracting institutional money. It's attracting private equity firms. It's got bigger dollars, right? They've got $5 million in profits to handle the debt, handle new employees, handle teams, handle expansion. It's just a much more attractive thing. And for a company to acquire another company and to bolt it on to their existing operations, to go through all the legal and cost and effort, it's got to be worth it. So it's kind of like buying a single family home versus buying a 100-unit apartment versus buying a 400-unit apartment. So 400-unit apartment complex is going to trade at a much greater valuation than a 100-unit apartment. Now, is that because there's more units? Yes, of course, but also per unit basis, it's more attractive because you are attracting pension funds, hedge funds, like bigger players, bigger dollars that are collecting a lot of money at very low rates, and they have a lot of capital that they need to deploy. The same thing with private equity firms in these businesses. They need to deploy that kind of stuff. So what does this have to do with you? Well, maybe a couple different things. Let's say you are in a business, like you have your own business. A lot of you listening out there probably do. If you could walk away from your business, what's going to happen? Like, could it exist without you? Maybe it's not going to thrive. Maybe it's not going to grow, but could it continue to generate profits and go on into the future, for a good period of time without much outside force from you? The answer is yes. Then that's phenomenal. And you need to start thinking about, okay, well, what is my exit? What am I going to do with this company? Maybe that's not for a long, long time down the road. But if you start thinking that way, thinking as if you're going to sell this business in the next 2 years, 18 months, 12 months, then you're going to institute better strategies. You're going to start growing your company. You're going to make sure that those successors are tuned up, those people that are doing the work of the owner so that it can be a true business, that they're doing it to the best of their abilities and they have the tools and resources. You're going to think about what strategic advantages, like what if I had an extra $1 million laying around? What could I do with this company? And those kind of things are only going to help your company, even if you don't sell it, right? So I think it's really good to think about your company as if you would sell it, right? As I was preparing my construction company for sale, I did really, really well with like charting out what are the roles, what are the responsibilities, what are the opportunities, who's going to do what, and grooming my successors to understand fully their roles and what their jobs were going to be and how to succeed with this. And as I did that, I was able to be less and less and less and less involved, which gave me the opportunity to do different things, right? It gave me the opportunity to jump into multifamily, which completely changed the financial trajectory of my life, which was essentially buying businesses. So now that's going really, really well. And I'm looking and digging back into, do I want to buy another business? Do I want to do something like this? And we're working on selling a couple of our businesses, right? We're selling 4 apartment complexes this year. So we've got a property that is under contract pretty locally. We've got another 70 unit apartment complex that's going under contract, hopefully this week. We've got a 113 unit complex in Illinois that we're putting up for sale. And we're doing those things. We're fine tuning it up. We're filling, making sure the occupancy is tight. We're making sure the management company is doing great. We're making sure those expenses are dialed in. We're making the property better, right? And yes, we are going to be selling it, but even if we weren't, it is tuning it up to get that highest valuation, which is in turn going to make it more and more profitable for us. So this exercise, no matter where you are, is going to work for you. Whether you have your own business and you're not planning to sell, whether you have your own business and you want to sell, whether you have your own job, but you want to turn it into a business, or, whether you have an apartment complex or houses or whatever, tuning that up, focusing on that to get that highest and best price for it is always worth the time. So let's say you are in a situation that you need to do something, right? You know that what you own is not a business, or it's not the business that you'd like it to be. It's more a job. What do you do? First, I think you need to realize how vital and important this is, because without the proper why, you're not really going to take action, or at least I wouldn't take action. Once I realized, though, that my attention, my focus, my time, my efforts are the crown jewel, there is nothing more important, that's when my perspective shifted, right? Let's say you're making 150 grand a year in your business. You're like, I can't afford to pay somebody 75 grand or 100 grand and me only make 50 grand to going forward, because it's just not going to work with my lifestyle. So one, I think that's broken thinking, right? You've got to be thinking expansion versus scarcity. You got to be thinking expanding the pie versus splitting up that pie. But when you realize that everything that you're focused on, the product is 150 grand, right? And as long as you stay focused on the things you're doing, that's essentially what you're going to get. Sure, maybe you can increase your revenues by 10% or your profits by 20%. If you work harder, you work more hours, you sign a couple more deals, so on and so forth. But imagine you don't have to do any of that anymore. Imagine you have somebody who is driving that revenue forward, driving that volume, driving those profits, and you can focus on the next thing, right? That's what makes apartments scalable, is when I buy something, I can set it up, I can get it going, I can get it stabilized, and that business will run forever if I let it, if I keep up with it, take care of it, pay attention to it every once in a while, it'll essentially go on in perpetuity and make me money for a long time. And so I'm not saying that most businesses are going to be quite as passive as apartments, but they can be a lot more profitable, right? You can generate a lot more revenue quickly, thereby raising the valuation. What do I mean by that? Let's say you buy an apartment that has rents that are $1,000 a month and there are 100 units. Well, if you want to triple the value of that building, you've got to take those rents to $3,000 a month, right? Or at least $2,000 a month, where you've got to increase that NOI a lot. And you just may not be able to do that, right? The market may not bear it, or you just may not have enough units. Like if you have 100 units, you can't get 200 units without building another addition to the complex, and maybe there's no land there. Like you're constrained. Whereas with a business, it's like, hey, we can introduce a new product line. We can charge more for our services. We can buy another company that has synergies there, and we can expand our brand. If we hit certain revenues, we're going to get a higher multiple, right? So there's definitely benefits because there's no kind of limit, right? There's nothing that's stopping you from building that company as big as you want or increasing the NOI or EBITDA as much as you want. So when you realize that everything that's holding you back is just you don't have enough attention and focus on growth. You only have it on, I got to show up, I got to make payroll, I got to sell the next job, I got to do this, I got to do that. You're going to stay in that scenario, which is why if you're considering buying a business, I would not recommend buying a business that's only making a couple $100,000 in EBITDA, right? Because it's going to be really difficult to claw your way through that. Maybe not, but that would just be my instinct is go bigger, right? Get $1 million in EBITDA. $2 million is better. $3 million is better. Like however many millions of EBITDA you can get and still get a decent deal and have a value add component. That's what I would be going for. So what do you do, right? I mean, I think you've got to invest in your teams. You've got to invest in the infrastructure for your teams. For me, that was investing in the franchise, paying their fees, learning their systems, implementing all that stuff. And it was painful. It was not fun, but that was critical for me. There's consultants that do that. There's EOS systems that do that if you're not going the franchise route, but there are definitely a lot of resources out there for building those processes and systems. Secondly, who can be your successor, right? Who can you partner with to do this? Who can take over your role? And that may be just a pure compensation play, right? They get paid X amount of dollars and they're your employee. That may be a partnership deal where they own a percentage of the company. And as they perform better, they get more and more and more. That's what I did I did a partnership play. And eventually they owned 100% of the company and just bought me out over the next 4 years. So I'm still getting checks every month from the sale of that company, which is pretty cool. You also may need to consider, is this something that will ever work, right? Or should I just shoot the horse? Is this something that I want to keep going along with and trying to make work? Or is this something that I need to just say, hey, I got to go in a different direction. This is only ever going to be a job and there's not going to be value there beyond that. You know, I don't know. It just kind of depends on where you are, but that's on the table, right? And I will say with my construction company, if it didn't work out with my transition, I would not have gone back in and try to rebuild it and try to start over and try to find somebody else. I just wouldn't have done that. I just needed to move on and move forward. And I had the resources and the opportunity to do that because I had been building the multifamily side for a while. You may not be able to do that though. So it depends on the scenario that you're in. But that is something that you need to consider. Is this something that can scale? Is this something that I can sell? Is this something that I can have a successor, that I can build a team around? Or is this just the type of business that's not set up for that, right? There are businesses that are just not suitable or conducive for that. Another thing is if you have a decent sized company and you're struggling to get to the next level, you may think about a partnership with a strategic player, such as a private equity firm, that they can bring capital infusion, but they can also bring a team of specialists who know how to take a company that's doing $5 million a year to $25 million a year, or to $50 million a year, or $100 million a year, because those are different games. Those are different strategies. That's something that you've never done before. And for you to get there by yourself may be difficult, right? I just was hearing about a case study about some owners who had a business. They sold 80% of the business to a private equity firm and they stayed on, right? So they sold 80%. The private equity firm came in, gave them a big lump sum of money. So they got some financial wealth right then at the gate, but they stayed on for a couple more years with this private equity firm. And they had agreements where they were going to help them hit these milestones. And yet the private equity firm was able to overcome a lot of challenges that they had not been able to overcome by themselves, partially because they had more capital, partially just because they didn't know what they were doing or how to grow beyond that certain plateau. Here's the cool part of the story. 3 years later, that private equity firm sold the company And so now, as a 20% owner, they got a bigger check for 20% of the company than they had gotten 3 years prior when they sold 80% of the company, right? So that's that expanding the pie mindset versus splitting up the pie. I mean, these guys gave away 80% of their company, and yet their second bite of the apple or piece of the pie, 20%, ended up being a larger piece of money than the 80%. So pretty incredible when you get the right team members in place. And so that's sort of my focus with buying businesses in the future, whether they be apartments or regular businesses, is what kind of expertise can I bring? Do I have that expertise? I do have that expertise in apartments. I don't necessarily have that expertise in certain fields of businesses. So who can I bring on as a strategic partner to help me get to the next level, right? With apartments, I know, okay, I've got to do these renovations. I've got to do this marketing plan. I've got to implement this software. I've got to get the rents to this point. I've got to get the expenses to this point. That's going to hit these metrics, and we'll be able to refinance. We'll be able to sell. We'll be able to hit the pro formas that we've promised to our investors. And I am the guy, right? I'm the expert. Like, I know, I mean, I don't necessarily do the property management, but I know how to do it, and I know who to hire and who to find to do that. With the businesses, it's the same thing, right? What are my strengths? Well, my strengths are I can raise capital. I can analyze business. I have a great mind for underwriting and pro formas and figuring some of that stuff out. But do I know how to take a $5 million company to a $25 million company? Not necessarily. Like, I want a strategic partner that's in that field as part of that deal to help me. It may be somebody that's in the existing company. It may be an outside consultant. It may be somebody from another company, and I can bring them over into my partnership. So it goes back to your network and who you know, who you're connected with, just like with multifamily. If you want to raise money, you want to get off market deals, you want to succeed in that industry, you're going to have to build your network. The same thing with this. So main takeaway that I want you to walk away with is your attention is the crown jewel. Your focus is the most important thing. And if right now your business is consuming all of your focus, you've got to change that. You've got to change that. I've laid out some tactical ways to do that, but you've got to start making progress towards implementing those systems, processes, key members, successors. Because look at your business through the eyes of an outsider, right? Someone that does not have years worth of blood, sweat, and tears poured into this, somebody that doesn't care, right? They're looking at your business objectively, and they're looking at how you work, how hard you work, how much you pour into this company, and how much you get compensated for it. Is that something that they want? Is that something that they're willing to pay for? And if it is, great, but most often there's definitely room for improvement. As I'm looking at businesses, I look at the guy who's making $800,000 a year, but he's killing himself. He's working himself to death, and he's the man. He's the center of everything. And if he goes away, the whole thing collapses. I don't want that. I don't want to learn his business. I don't want to become a slave to that business, right? I want that business to generate money for me. I want that business to grow, but I don't want to have to directly trade my life force to make that happen, right? And that's the key. Is if you start doing that, even in a small way, it will build and it will build. And you'll start looking at opportunities through that lens, and you'll start being very, very protective of your focus and your time, because you know that that's the only limit, right? The only limit that we have is our time, attention, and focus. Everything else we can buy, right? We can buy more businesses. We can get more capital. We can get more loan. We can get more debt. We can get more people, right? We can buy more time from employees or key members or partners or whatever, but your time, your attention, your focus, that's the only thing that you cannot get any more of. We all have 24 hours a day. That's it. So being brutally cutthroat on what you're going to focus on and taking that approach to your business, right? Take that approach, because that is going to make your business far more valuable to a future buyer, but it's also going to make your life far more enjoyable and make your time far more valuable to you, to make that business far more valuable to your lifestyle. So that's what I got for today, guys. I appreciate you being here. We're getting a lot of traction with the show. I've got an exciting announcement coming up on a podcast I'm going to be on. So I'll be dropping that in the next few weeks. If you're enjoying the show, like, share, write me a review, tell your friends. That's how you can make an impact, and that's how you can give back, right? I'm here putting the show together. Cost me time, cost me money, cost me focus, attention, resources. And if you feel like giving back, then share the show, write a review, post it on your socials. Whatever you do, I appreciate it and I see it. Okay, guys, make it a great week. And remember to unlock your life. Peace.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.